Welcome back to Teachings, everybody. This week you've got me, Father Adam.
And Xavier Ramirez.
And this week we're going to talk about
how to incorporate prayer into your busy schedule. And then we'll also be talking about, canonization?
Mm-hmm.
I guess you can say.
Yeah. Good. All right. So X scheduling, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know X very well, but he's one of the most busy dudes I've ever met in my life. Because you're studying,
Yeah.
right? What's your major again?
I'm a biology major.
And from what I understand, biology is not an easy subject.
No,
organic chemistry is a fun thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I have no idea. I took 2 science classes in seminary, and that was it, and that was plenty. So, good, but God love you. So, you have a busy life.
Oh, definitely. I want to know how I can be better with my faith and how to incorporate prayer into a busy schedule when you have back-to-back classes, or when you have to wake up early in the morning when you really don't want to, or maybe late at night prayer. What is some advice you can give me to help me create a habit of this and just make me better at praying, I guess you can say.
Sure, yeah, and it's a hard call. That's a question I know we actually explored a lot when I was in seminary.
Mm-hmm.
And I know my formators, those who are in charge of me, they talked a lot about you have to pray in the morning. Now I'm saying that we'll have caveats all so here's a couple of thoughts. First, they said you have to pray in the morning, basically. We went back and forth about all sorts of stuff. And you have to pray in the morning. Why? Because that's when you're least likely to be interrupted. Mm-hmm. That's when you can consistently probably get to prayer. So I'll say from my life, for instance, I find that true for my life because you guys are up all hours of the night. Mm-hmm. And early morning, odds are, college students aren't really worried about what the heck I'm doing at about 7, 8 in the morning. That's just my, with my lifestyle and the way I'm living life, plus I tend to be a morning person anyway, so that's a win for me, I guess. So doing late night things with you guys is fun and exhausting. That's a whole different realm of things. So for my own life, knowing myself and knowing I am a morning person, it's easier for me to pray in the morning. It's easier for me to assume that I won't be interrupted some way. The earliest I think a college student will schedule an appointment is maybe 10 o'clock. So I got a good chunk of time, right, in the morning. Yeah. But coupled with that is the difficulty of what about the rest of your life? So sometimes I can go pretty late here. We've got a couple holy hours at 8 o'clock at night here. So I'm just just kind of going. And so that's what does your schedule look like right now?
My schedule, I want to say probably the busiest day, I want to say maybe Wednesday. Mm-hmm. So I got class in the morning at 9:30. Mm-hmm. And I wake up around 7 or 8 so I can make sure I get all my materials and stuff. So I'm in and wake up, actually get some coffee in me and brush my teeth and stuff. Yep. So that takes about an hour or so. Mm-hmm. And then I go to class. And then from 9:30 to, or not 9:30, I think it's 9 to 9:50 I have another class. Mm-hmm. And then I have a small break for lunch. Mm-hmm. And then I have a lab from 2 to 5. Mm-hmm. And then after that I have something else to do with my lab group, or I have to go hop on a Zoom meeting with my professor or something like that. So that's after lab. Mm-hmm. And then throughout the night, maybe 7, 8-ish, I'll either have volleyball games, or I have another study session with my classmates on campus, or go to the library, or read this article, or read other books and stuff. So that maybe goes on for hours of the night and stuff. So that's my busiest day, I would say. Yeah.
So Wednesday really kills you.
Yeah, definitely.
God bless you. Well, yeah, and that's good. You have the structure in your mind of what your day looks like. This is another kind of thing that they pointed to us in seminary, and it's just something I offer, is having a written out schedule. So for a long time, up until like I was 3 years into priesthood, I had a written out planner schedule. I finally used it on my phone. It took me a while to grow up, but but I find that helpful to actually line up everything I'm doing throughout the day. Sometimes it can feel intimidating, so that's not the helpful thing. But to kind of have everything lined up on your schedule and then look at, and basically say, what are my non-negotiables in all of this? The problem is when we have too many non-negotiables. So like you're a full-time student, and so those things are really, a lot of them are probably non-negotiables. You have to go to class. You need to study to be able to do your classes well. And so that's important. School. Another thing probably for your state in life is fun. So like the fact you mentioned volleyball, that's your athletic chair here at the Newman Center. And so that is work also, organizing that and leading that team. But at the same time, I would imagine there's a bit of fun in that.
Oh, definitely.
And so that's another one of these pieces that has to be considered in all this, because otherwise you're just going to be murdering yourself is basically what I say. There has to be some sort of levity in life, otherwise it can be too much. So work, or do you work right now?
No.
Okay, yeah. I know you're working during the summer.
Yes,
and so
during the summer, yes.
Yeah, God bless you. So like some people have to incorporate their work schedule into their lives. So school, fun, work, and then prayer. Yeah. Prayer is one of these, And I guess with fun I would include like social life, because we have to be social creatures. That's just how it goes. Even with COVID, I know that was one of the hardest parts of me being in quarantine. I was just like, I can text people and stuff, but it's not the same. Anyway, so you've got these pieces, and you've got these pieces in your schedule that you know are non-negotiables. Basically, and again, what in seminary they talk to us about is like one of your non-negotiables has to be your prayer time.
Yeah.
Now, for me as a priest or as a seminarian, I had school and everything was related to seminary, and so they gave us a lot of non-negotiables. They gave us certain non-negotiables when we had to be at prayer in community, like morning prayer, evening prayer, mass, things like that. But then I had to discern on my own other non-negotiables, like working out, because my first year I gained 20 pounds because all I did was eat. And I was like, okay, I have a new non-negotiable. I need to work out, or I started running. And then I noticed that in my own life, the mandatory prayer times that I was told to be at was not sufficient. Okay. I knew I had to do more than that. I had to have my own personal prayer time, not just liturgy of the hours in Mass. So as you're looking at your schedule, those are things I would consider. It's like, what do I need? What's going to sustain me? Because it's funny because very quickly we can look at schedules. I don't know if this happens to you, but you can look at the schedule and say like, prayer can become the thing that's like, prayer is good, but I really need to do this thing. It probably doesn't happen every time. I know it doesn't happen every time for me, but I know there are times when maybe my prayer hasn't been as fervent, or I haven't been as dedicated, and I go back to it with more fervency, or like I really just finally sit down, like I need an hour here so I can pray, and then feeling that relief in some sense of just like, why am I trying so hard to do all of these things myself, and why am I not relying on Christ? That tends to be what those hours tend to look like. So basically, again, I would look at my schedule and say, what are my non-negotiables? So your Wednesday sounds insane.
Yes,
right?
Very insane.
Yeah, and this is another thing to just consider, because it always convicts me when I hear it. There's a guy named St. Francis de Sales, and he wrote a spiritual masterpiece called The Introduction to the Devout Life. And in it he says, everybody needs to pray for half an hour a day, unless you're busy. Then you need an hour. Jeez. And I'm just like, yikes.
That's a lot of time.
It is. Well, yeah, it is. And I mean, I'm just saying that he was in a different time period and culture. I can't remember the date. I want to say either 1200s or 1500s. I can't remember. And I mean, not everybody walking into prayer for the first time can just be there for 30 minutes or an hour. Or maybe it's something you have to break up, like 15 minutes of this part of the day, 15 minutes at the end of the day, whatever. But I think his point in saying that was more like, okay, we're all busy, but he basically say that's not an excuse for us to forget about God, because God is the source and center of everything we are. So look at your Wednesday, for example, and say, what is doable? That's another piece to really think about. Because you could have these high intentions of like, you know what, I am busy, but I need to make an hour because God's worth it. And that's beautiful and noble. Oh, yeah. But is it realistic? I know I run into people often enough who make these big goals in prayer or anything, really. Working out, that's another one of those, like, you can just like, yeah, I'm going to go and be in the gym for 2 hours or whatever you kind of have in a conception. But if you're going in cold, that can be intimidating, and all of a sudden you're really sore from working out, and then you just give up. Same thing with prayer. It's just like, oh, wow, like this is really a lot more of a commitment than I thought it would be, and then you give up. So I'd recommend starting small with prayer. Like, I need 10, 15 minutes a day, or whatever I can conceive of that is actually doable. Maybe I need to do something with a friend consistently, because they'll hold me accountable, and we can do it at the same time, like between something and something else. But to start small, and I would recommend to do something and start small for a month. Like, try to just do that one little thing for a month and see how that goes after that point. Reevaluate. Or even for a semester, because it might be difficult to reevaluate your life over and over again when you're in the midst of just trying to blitz through school, right? So do your 10 or 15 minute thing a day for the semester, and see how that goes. See if you're finding peace, satisfaction in that prayer style, prayer life. See what your schedule looks like from there, and say, is there anything else I need? I mean, like, can I add more time, or should I, or whatever else. Anything else you want to say about that?
Do you think it's better to just read off a prayer, or like whenever during these prayer times, like maybe 5 minutes or something, do you feel like it's better just to sit there and just think to yourself, or maybe like read part of the gospel, or read something from the Bible? Like, what would you think the best thing to start with to those who like don't know how to pray efficiently yet?
That's a very good question. So, like, one of the difficulties is everybody has a different prayer style, and there are certain things that appeal to certain people that don't appeal to other people. For instance, there's something called imaginative prayer, which is basically you read a scripture passage and you just envision, kind of like, put yourself in the scene. Like, where are you? Are you one of the scribes or the Pharisees? Are you an apostle? Are you standing next to Jesus? Are you listening to him from far off? And just to imagine the scene and everything around that. For some people, that's a really beautiful and moving experience. And for others, they're like, that's boring or weird, or like, I don't get it. It doesn't click. Okay. And part of that might just be lack of experience. There's so many different types of things. There's Lectio Divina, where it's basically you read the scriptures and you read it again, and you maybe even read it a third time, and then you reflect on it and say, okay, Lord, as I was reading this is what really stuck out to me. And then you pray with that, like, Lord, why did this part stick out to me? This seems really random. And so you meditate on that for a little while. For some people, maybe there's people like St. Teresa of Avila who talk about the different stages of prayer. And these vocal prayers is what she would call them, of things like praying the Our Father, Hail Mary, Glory Be, or any other memorized prayer. That might be the level you're on, which is totally and perfectly good and helpful. It could be. There's a lot of different written prayers. And just to name one, for instance, is like the Litany of Humility. That's one that keeps popping up in my circles that people find really powerful. So maybe that's even, I don't know, if you feel like you need the humility in your life or something like that, maybe that's a place to pray. It's because spirituality is as broad and as vast as any one of us. Maybe if you have a busy life like yours, maybe it is worthwhile to just be there in the quiet and say, Lord, I'm tired. I need some quiet. I need you. And maybe that's all you need to say, and just be there for 5 minutes and say, Lord, let me just help me. Like, maybe that's what you need in the moment.
Yeah.
It kind of depends. And the good and beautiful thing about prayer is, I think, as long as we're willing to show up, God will bless those efforts. He will do something with that. And maybe you won't necessarily feel something every time you go to prayer. But there will be something to be said about the constant showing up to prayer, and even just taking those few minutes and being with Him in whatever capacity that looks like.
Okay. I like that. I really do.
Yeah.
I didn't know there's like other types of ways that you can pray. There's like so many out there.
Yeah, we could talk for days about those
definitely.
things. Yeah, but
okay. So I've been seeing on Facebook and online, Instagram, just everything about his name is Carlo.
Carlo, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know his last name, but he's, I guess, getting how would you say it?
Beatified.
Yeah, beatified. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So like, what does that mean, and like why did they choose, like, kind of choose him out of everybody else in the world? Like, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and like, to be honest, I don't know a lot about soon-to-be Blessed Carlo, but what I looked up is his beatification service ceremony will be on the 10th of October, and Pope Francis will celebrate that. And so what happens is the practicalities of how somebody gets to the step of beatification, which is the step right before canonization when they become a saint in the church, is that somebody in the Vatican, or like there's usually somebody called a postulator for the cause, and this guy or girl works to promote the cause of this person who might become a saint. And so what they do is they look into their lives, they try to get eyewitness testimony if at all possible, they try to look at everything that they've written and done, and they try to compile all of this and then give it to a committee at the Vatican, and then they look over it and see if there's any problems or errors or whatever else. Now, with Blessed Carlo, or soon to be Blessed Carlo, he died in 2006. And he was born in 1991, I saw, and I'm just like, geez, that's like barely younger than I am.
Yeah.
So crazy. Yeah, in 06, what was I doing? I wasn't being saintly, I don't think. I was in 11th grade, and I don't know. So God bless him. But what I read about him was apparently he was... one of the things that fascinated him was Eucharistic miracles, and so he was looking up all of these Eucharistic miracles across the world, and he put together a website in the last few months that he was alive to catalog all of these Eucharistic miracles, and unfortunately he died of leukemia, so the terrible cancer, bone cancer. And so apparently he was he was from the London area, I think is what I read. And people, like, the testimony that they gathered was that he was very much a friend to everybody. So he had a bunch of friends who lived in broken homes, like their parents were divorced and things like that. And so apparently he was always inviting them to his house to be there and to be part of that life and community. And he just had this big heart for those who had broken families. And he was always standing up for injustices amongst his peers, of just like, he did not tolerate bullying and things like this. And so he was just it sounds like, again, from the brief what I've read about him, this stand-up young man. And apparently what happens in the process of canonization is not everybody in the world, in the universe, is canonized the same, because if you're in heaven, that means you're a saint.
Mm-hmm.
So what the church does is she looks very intently at certain members that we've had and investigates them very thoroughly, and then ultimately says they're beatified or canonized. They're either a blessed or a saint. For our sake. I mean, they don't care. They're in heaven. Yeah. They're doing great. But for our sake, it's nice to have these witnesses and examples, and especially somebody so young. Mm-hmm. Only died in 2006, so he was how old would that be? He would have been like 15 when he died. Yeah, 91 to 06. And again, I was like 17 when he died. And it's just crazy to think of. And the beautiful thing about like the fact that the church keeps looking into the cause of different saints and like canonizing and beatifying and canonizing people is that it's a reminder to us that even today we can be saints. This is a normal kid as far as the eye can see. And maybe you've also seen on Facebook, there's a picture of him in the glass coffin, and he looks like he's just asleep because God has gifted the church with his body being incorrupt. That is, the signs of decay that usually happen to a body after somebody's died and it starts decomposing, he doesn't have those signs. His body is preserved. And so, like, if you look at him, he looks like he's asleep. And he's wearing, like, Nike shoes. And it's just like, this is a regular dude. Like, 100% the dude, right? Mm-hmm. And so... he is so the dude. And it's just this amazing thing. Like, we have modern day saints that are still striving for holiness. And this is a kid who dealt with sickness and apparently dealt with it very gracefully, because I mean, I could imagine being bitter or upset or whatever about I stubbed my toe and I'm bitter and upset. And yet this kid, what is he doing in his last months of life? But he's fascinated by Eucharistic miracles and he makes a website out of it. Like, he's using the modern tools that he's been given. And so the process for beatification is, after they've looked through all of his life, he becomes what's called a servant of God. And basically they say that everything he did and said and taught was worthy of veneration. They're like, yeah, he's a good guy. Okay. And then beatification happens whenever there's a miracle attributed to that person's cause. So say maybe somebody else has leukemia, and they're like, you know what, I'm going to pray for for servant of God Carlo's intercession because I'm struggling with leukemia. I don't know what his miracle is, but conceivably, if this person was then cured of leukemia and they couldn't find any medical reason why that should have happened, that could be attributed to Blessed Carlo, saying like, we asked for his intercession and I found healing. And so once 2 miracles have been confirmed, then that person is then canonized as a saint. So one to be blessed, another one to be a saint. Wow. So it's just, this kid is cool. Yeah. Again, he's barely younger than I am, and striving for holiness. And it should just be an inspiration, I think.
Oh, definitely. He's just so young. It kind of just makes me think, like, anybody can do it. Anybody. Yeah. You don't have to be, great in the early days and stuff. It's right now in the present is what you do and what you're gonna do. Yeah. Type of stuff. It's amazing.
It is, yeah. I mean, just think of the saints in our tradition who had a checkered, I don't know Blessed Carlo's past, but like, we have lots of saints in our history who were very messed up in the early parts of life, found Christ, and then boom, like, took off. Mm-hmm. And like, again, it's just so inspiring to see somebody my age who is striving for holiness when I was just barely trying to figure out high school. And he's just like, oh no, I love Jesus. Like, praise God. So,
well, I think that's answered all my questions and about scheduling and busy. Yeah.
Good. Well, yeah, and hopefully, I mean, hang in there, X. I know life is crazy, and maybe even ask for Blessed Carlo's intercession, because again, he's just a normal dude, and he gets the struggles of life probably better than maybe, I don't know. Like, there's something we can relate to him about because he's so modern day. Yeah. he knows the struggles and the busyness of life, I'm sure, too. And maybe ask for his intercession as you keep trying to knock out all this science business.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, pleasure to be with you, X.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll catch you all next time.